Hi, I'm Amy Baldwin, and I'm here with Lori Hazard, and we are talking about some things that families can do during the summer to kind of get their student ready for college. And so today's topic is loneliness, which is something we don't want to think is going to happen to our student, but it might. And so, Lori, I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of what are some strategies for parents and families when it comes to helping their students kind of get socially integrated and kind of dealing with all the things that happen whenever you go away to college for the first time.
Yeah, so I think conversations over the summer about anticipating that there's a good chance that this could happen, that your student might feel lonely, and scope out what resources are available. So I think counseling services is helpful, but if a student is reticent about going to counseling and they're a resident student and they live in the residence halls, often the resident assistants or residence directors can be helpful. So chances are at the beginning of a semester, there's a lot of programming in residence halls to get the residents to know each other a little bit better. And if students are feeling lonely, they would disclose to that person, the resident assistant or the resident director, about feeling lonely. And so oftentimes those personnel that work in the residence halls know the handful of people that might be experiencing those feelings of loneliness, and they can help connect those students together to maybe have a meal or maybe create a study buddy system with them. If a student's reticent to go to counseling, I would give them some counseling advice and say once a week if they can just do one thing to get themselves out of their comfort zone. So that might be asking a student in class if they wanted to go to the library with them, or asking somebody in your residence hall if you wanted to attend a club or organization meeting, or maybe visiting your faculty during office hours, just so there's some connection on campus. So trying to get the student to change their behavior. You really don't want the student to spend a lot of time on FaceTime and social media connecting with their friends and family from home. That's something that probably feels pretty comfortable to do, but if you can help your student work their way away from doing that and getting connected with the people in the community that they're currently living in. So I often say to parents, you got to kind of figure out what your students' distress tolerance is for staying on campus, because oftentimes students might have that just reaction that they just want to come home. And what I say to parents is do calendar therapy, open the calendar with your student, kind of take a look at when is it the next time that might be ideal for them to come home, pick a time or date 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out, as much as the student can sort of tolerate, and have the agreement that they can have that touchstone of going home at that time period. But if your student is really struggling and they're not going to be able to tolerate that kind of distress, then I think it's okay for them to come home and then sort of regroup and figure out how are you going to handle the loneliness from there. And I think what's really hard is when we are feeling lonely, our tendency is to retreat. And it's counterintuitive, right? What you want to do is get yourself out there. And I am acknowledging that this is not easy. None of this is easy. But I think partnering with some of the support services on campus can be helpful. And I think of, a student activities office, maybe go see somebody from student activities and look at all the clubs and organizations on campus. And I would often do this exercise with students where I'd say, pick the 5 clubs and organizations you think you would most likely want to get involved in. And then I would help them figure out who the club organization president is. And then I'd say, okay, let's send an email to the club org president and see if you can just chat with them and find out more about the organization. So just some
So,
concrete strategies.
yeah, I was going to say, is there anything that you see sometimes parents doing that is well meaning but might contribute? You kind of touched on, FaceTiming the family regularly. I know as you're a parent, I'm a parent of college aged kids. And, sometimes our instinct is to, do more of those things that make them feel better. And is there something else we could be doing or doing differently that could help if we know our student comes to us and says, I'm having trouble making friends. I don't feel, I'm homesick. I feel kind of lonely. Is there something else, something in addition to what you said, or a tweak to something we might do to help them?
Yeah, I think parents can help by putting it together a communication plan with the student. Like I said, agreeing that, okay, you're not going to text or call me 5 or 6 times a day, but we'll debrief the day at 8 p.m. every night, and we can talk about how you manage through the day. And so the parent can kind of, if the student at first is reticent to access the services on campus, the parent can kind of act as a coach from a healthy distance, right?
Yeah.
And say, okay, let's talk about how you managed today, what happened, process the day with them, and then agree that you're not going to have that other touch base for another 24 hours, so the student can kind of work their way through some of the feelings and issues on their own a little bit.
Okay. And maybe just that you talked about reporting back. I think that's a good kind of feedback loop, like go do this or try this and then come tell me how that went is a really
Mhm.
good, because then they have an assignment, right? To
Right.
one as thing that I've done with students, and you tell me if you think this reverse psychology might work as a general practice for parents is I'll tell students in class, like, loneliness is very common. It's temporary. You get through it. You're in a new space. So, getting to know people sometimes can be a challenge if it's not something you're comfortable with. But if you are somebody who has a little bit of outgoingness, you smile at people, you say hello, you introduce yourself, to make a point to do that to as many people as possible, because you may be helping someone through the process of the awkwardness of, I don't know anybody. So, we do have outgoing students, right? We do have ones that
Right.
are real friendly, but just wonder, what do you think about the idea of coaching those students to be mindful of the fact that other students may really be appreciative of them, inviting them into a conversation?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Like, one of the things that you said is the idea of norming the experience of loneliness. And even talking to the students about social media, right? That when they're lonely, to sort of combat that, they'll get on their phones, and then it looks like, well, everybody else is having a grand old time, and I'm the only one that's sitting here having those feelings. So I think norming that experience is really important, and talking about how all first year students are basically going through the same experiences. And I really like the idea of students who, they may be experiencing some other adjustment issues, but loneliness isn't one for them, and that they could help someone out. And I think faculty can help too, right? Because faculty can, in first year courses, create classroom environments that enable students to get to know each other in that formal setting. And so it takes the onus off of the student a little bit to um, create an environment where they have to meet someone, and there are different spaces on campus where people are working at creating opportunities for people to meet each other. But I like that idea of the cultivating the altruism with other students, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because you never know. You may be the one person that is friendly that allows other students to kind of open up and feel like they belong on there. So, any last words of advice for parents and families and kind of coaching their student before they go?
Yeah, I think as you were talking, I was thinking about how that calendar therapy strategy works really well if a student is within commuting distance of a campus, right? If they're able to touch base and go home once during the semester. But for students who live really far away, a plane ride, they're going to have to rely on other kinds of strategies. And that is when parents will have to do the FaceTime and um, use this modern technology that we have to help keep in contact with their students.
Yeah, and there are ways to negotiate that, that could be helpful. Even, if somebody they know lives closer to them, I had when I was away at graduate school, a friend of a friend invited me over for dinner because I was struggling with, kind of feeling homesick and things like that. So parents couldn't be there, but somebody that I knew through them kind of was the replacement for it. So you can be creative about it, right?
Yeah, and I think just always remember that there are experts on campus that are really skilled at helping students with these college adjustment issues. And if you can help the student find those individuals on campus and get them connected with those individuals, that goes a long way.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Lori.
Yeah.
Always learn something new, something that can help both student and the parent too. So thanks.